Well. Okay. It's a lot different waiting for people. Hi. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to do it. I'll do it if nobody's watching, because I did the research. And today, I'm talking about Indian Point and the decision that Governor Cuomo came to shutting it down. And I don't know about going live, but okay, I got people. Hey, keep going. Well, somebody's here. One person's here. It's a lot different than streaming at Real Progressives, but it's okay because we're a new environment. Stuff is new, and we want to go to different places. So here I am. Hi, Judy. I'll talk to you. Hopefully it can get shared, but it's an interesting topic, actually, because today in the New York Times first, and then in subsequent newspapers all over, the report came that Indian Point nuclear plant is going to be shut down by 2025. And it's a pretty interesting one to me, because in my past, I lived across the river from Indian Point. I had friends that lived near Indian Point. I even dated a guy that worked at Indian Point. So it has a personal meaning to me ever since the late 70s. We just knew. We knew then nuclear wasn't good. So what is wrong with nuclear? We know that the environmental impact is not great. I mean, we've all heard of Fukushima. There, at least from Indian Point, there's 15 miles for environmental protection, which means there's really nothing. There's nothing that's safe around Indian Point if it did melt down, if there is anything. And thanks, Judy. And we also know that nuclear reactors have destructive intakes, and the water comes out, it's heated, it hurts the wildlife, the fisheries. It hasn't been good in the Hudson River, and they have been fighting this nuclear reactor for as long as I can remember. There's always been some kind of group. Now, the group that I refer to as Riverkeeper, because they actually do a lot of the work specific to Indian Point. And they're probably pretty happy today, because Governor Cuomo entered into this arrangement to have this shut down by actually 2020. And there is a clause that will extend it possibly to 2025, which we would hope not. And those are for what has not really been described as mitigating circumstances. Perhaps there is nothing in place to power New York City. You know, what we heard, what I read, was the hydropower could come from Quebec, and the hope is wind farms. Can it come on that fast? I don't know. It's only a few years. But in that few years, what I started thinking about was not just the environmental damage. Hi, Helen. Hi, Erin. My girls. But not just the environmental damage, okay? There's a lot more to this. I mean, yes, there are radioactive isotopes that are discharged, and we don't like that. That's released, you know. With nuclear power, we've always had this thing with the government that said, well, there's some controlled emissions that are okay. I don't think there are any radioactive emissions that are okay, quite frankly. But we play these games, and it seems to me that in the industry of electricity, it's been game playing from the very get-go because of the the side effects of almost everything that we've come up with in technology. Hi, Beth. So, you know, this place has 2,000 tons of radioactive waste overpacked into their spent fuel rods. So that's a lot of waste that you have to get rid of. And there are pools on top of the plant that there are pictures and videos that I looked at. And these pools are water just collected with nasty things. We all realize that. That are different types of radiation. I'm not going to go into the different isotope names, but the whole process is, it's a nuclear fuel cycle, and it starts with uranium mining, that comes uranium milling, then the chemical conversion, fuel enrichment, the fabrication, and then the power that's controlled by the reactions, the nuclear reaction, and then the power is generated, it's sent through lines just like everything else, and it goes out to people's houses as part of the grid. There's a company that owns the company. There's a company behind this, and the company's name is Entergy, and Entergy is in Texas, and they have a pretty interesting deal going. And one of the things that this led me to, and when I do these things, these streams, I think of the environmental impact, you know, billions of gallons of water that's just every day that they're using to do these things, to make these nuclear power plants go. However, you got to think of the company behind it. Is my thing falling? I lost you. The company behind it. Entergy. They are called one of 100 best corporate citizens by Corporate Energy magazine. So there is that whole industry in the electric utility industry of nuclear. And this company itself, Entergy, they employ 13,000 people in the country, 13,000. And they own and operate power plants, and they say they have approximately 30,000 megawatts of power that they generate in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and obviously New York. If we're only using, in New York, is only using 2,000 megawatts from nuclear power at Indian Point, then this company is generating a lot more all over from other different things that they own. They're divested. I looked at everything about them. They actually have 15,500 miles of interconnected transmission lines and substations across 114,000 square miles. So this is not a small company. And, you know, I'm going to try something else because I don't like the way that looks, or it's falling. Anyway, that's a lot. So they power a lot of people. And we are power hungry, you know. We all have everything. Lights. Unfortunately, my good light is out. So they're, you know, quite a few states. They're worth $11.5 billion. And I started thinking to myself, $11.5 billion. I didn't get to see what the CEO earned, but 13,000 people they pay an average of $40 to $60 an hour jobs to keep this nuclear power plant going, to keep it from melting down, to keep it from turning into Fukushima, basically. They've even won awards. In 2015, they won some, it's called a Sabre Award. It must be something in the utility industry. And they won for their communication team for their main transformer failure at Indian Point. Well, they communicated what they had to communicate to make sure that that transformer wasn't going to melt down. You know, I mean, this is serious, serious, serious business. And this company, when you think about the power that they provide, think about what power they hold. Because even though they are overseen by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, this company is responsible for, in New York alone, 20 million lives. 20 million lives. Okay? That's a lot of people. That the area, if there was a major meltdown, now they say, oh, we have all these years with no major meltdowns, but it's going to happen because the stuff is aging. And the company is glowing on the page, but the stuff is aging. And if you read the research that's out there by other individuals and Riverkeeper, you know that this is because the plant was built in 1973. Yep, that's right, Kim. It's still leaking. So, but the game they play with our lives and energy is because of money and the millions and billions and billions of dollars that's behind this. And this energy corporation, Entergy, is just one. They've got their CEO, his name is John Ventosa, and he lives in Texas because that's where the company is based. And you know, he's won some things, and there's a president, Bill Maul, and Chris Backen is the executive vice president, Timothy Mitchell is the senior vice president, and Donna Jacobs is another CEO. So they have a pretty entrenched board, and they are on the Dow Jones. Their stock goes for $73.32 a share. Now, what do you think is going to happen when it closes? When Indian Point particularly closes? What's going to happen to that $73.32 share price of Entergy? Think about that. So you think about that, you think about 13,000 jobs in New York alone, okay? The money they make, and then the money that the investors have in the company. They won in 2016 the Dow Jones Sustainability in North America Index. They won a spot on that index. And that's only one of 4 utilities in that index on the stock market. And if you have a retirement account, and I've talked about this before when I did streams earlier, that you need to look at what you're invested in. Because these mutual funds that invest, you could be invested in through an index that has Entergy in it because it's a utility company, and on the Dow Jones there's mutual funds that have lots of these companies in them. Okay, so that's another thing you have to think about. All this stuff behind the fact that the technology stinks, that I personally have been scared of nuclear power my whole entire life. And then Fukushima came, and we know what's happening, and we know that they that there are emissions. We know that safety inspections aren't that great. Okay, we do know these things, and what I'm wondering now is what is going to happen to the 1,000 employees and how they're going to let them go. And what kind of jobs are they going to get? Are these people going to have to move out of state? These are all the kinds of things in the negotiations to close something like this that the governor and all these politicians and company people, they talk about this. Yes, it's employees, it's jobs. You know, we have an economy. It's just too bad that it has to have so much resting on the energy for our electricity and our conveniences. I couldn't afford $73.32 a share, but there are those that have it. So really where I'm going with this is, and I'd like to do another piece, another part, is about the relationship of the nuclear power industry to the Trump administration. and what the next 4 years hold, because they might be closing Indian Point in New York, but that doesn't mean that they might not build or open or whatever in these red states that have politicians that may have investments and sit on boards of companies like Entergy. I couldn't see their board of directors. I didn't see the board of directors. But this is what we as environmental people are. We're environmentalists. We care about our environment. We're up against the corporatocracy. We're up against bureaucracies. We're up against the politicians. We're up against the oligarchy. We know what we want. We want clean energy. We want the research and development dollars of the United States that it has to be put forth in research and development into all of these things. So these companies like Entergy that employ 13,000 people, that make $11.5 billion, that have a board of directors and have investors, can put their money somewhere else and make nuclear energy not attractive. It's attractive because it makes money and it powers a lot of houses and a lot of people and a lot of businesses. Now, I know that today there was something else that came along with this decision locally for Protect Orange County, and the fact that they have their the plant there. It's a CPV plant, and I don't have a lot of research on it right now because I was looking at how fast will the green pick up, you know, overall, and what kind of employment do wind farms have? Things like that. Are wind farms going to give 13,000 people jobs? What are we going to do? Are we going to have a guaranteed federal income for people that lose their jobs? I mean, there are so many things that are involved over and above the destruction and the water usage and all those destructive forces in the water. Then there's the other side. That's what we have to think about. As environmentalists, as progressives, in the political arena, our eyes have to be opened to the fact that we can sit and protest against, we want to be against nuclear power. But you got to think of all of those things behind them. The companies, the people, the workforce, the stock market, how much they're worth. That's it. And it's kind of hard for me to read your comments today because for some reason this whole thing is not set up correctly, and I'm going to work on that. But that's what I want you to think about for today, because the headline of the New York Times about nuclear energy and what's behind it. Because with all the talk of the pipelines, we're forgetting about nuclear energy. Let's not. Okay? So don't forget to share this, because I'm in Facebook jail. I can't share it. And I want people to know what's going on. That's why I do this. That's why I do this. So don't forget about Entergy. Don't forget about that. Don't forget what's behind all this. And you guys, have a great night. Thank you for watching me.